My name is Jasmine Rougemont, 28 years old. The worst betrayal of my life happened on a Tuesday afternoon in October. My grandfather and I had just returned from a 3-week trip to Europe, his bucket list dream. When we pulled up to his house in Portland's Nob Hill district, something was wrong. My key wouldn't turn. The lock had been changed. My father answered Grandpa's call with 5 words that still make my blood run cold. "We sold the house, Dad." They don't know that Grandpa predicted this exact scenario. They don't know what's inside the trust document they never bothered to read. They don't know that Dr. John Castellano has been waiting for this phone call for 2 years. That Tuesday afternoon was when everything flipped, and my parents learned that greed comes with a price tag they couldn't afford. If you've ever watched someone you love be betrayed by their own family, stay with me, because what happened next changed everything. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon when our Uber pulled up to 1847 NW Northrop Street. Grandpa was tired. I was tired. We'd just spent 12 hours in the air from Paris, and all I wanted was to collapse into my bed in the Victorian second-floor bedroom. But when I pulled out my key, it didn't fit. The lock was new, chrome Schlage deadbolt shining in the October sun. The old brass Yale lock, the one that had been there for 15 years, was gone. "Jasmine, try your key," Grandpa said quietly. I tried again. Nothing. "Did you change the lock, Grandpa?" He looked at me. His blue eyes, Catherine's eyes, my mother's eyes, were steady. "No," he said. "I didn't." Mrs. Chen walked past on the sidewalk, our neighbor for 10 years. She saw us standing there with our suitcases. She looked away and kept walking. That's when I knew. Grandpa pulled out his phone. His left hand shook slightly, not from the stroke he'd had 2 years ago, but from something else, anger maybe, or vindication. He dialed. Put it on speaker. The phone rang 3 times before my father picked up. "Dad?" Jeremy's voice came through, casual, unconcerned. "You're back already?" "Jeremy," Grandpa said. His voice was calm, too calm. "Why doesn't my key work?" Silence. Then, "Dad, calm down. We sold the house." I felt the words like a punch. "You sold my house?" Grandpa asked. "It's for your own good. You're 76. You had a stroke. You can't take care of that big place anymore." "I see." Grandpa's voice didn't change. "And where exactly did you think Jasmine and I would live?" "There are excellent assisted living facilities." Grandpa hung up. He stood there on the sidewalk for a moment. 14 notifications lit up his phone screen. Missed calls, all from unfamiliar numbers. He'd ignored them while we were in France. Now I understood why they'd been calling. Then he did something I'll never forget. He smiled. Not a sad smile. Not a bitter smile. A cold, knowing smile I'd never seen on his face before. He walked to the porch steps, the wooden Victorian steps where the third plank had a worn spot from 40 years of him sitting there, and he sat down. His blue Samsonite suitcase still had the Air France tag attached. My purple duffel was on the sidewalk. We looked like refugees. "Grandpa," I said, my voice shaking, "what do we do? Should I call the police?" He looked up at me. "No," he said. "Call Dr. John Castellano. His number's in my phone under JC Emergency. Tell him code Lazarus." "Code Lazarus? What does that mean?" His smile widened. "It means your father just made the biggest mistake of his life." My hands shook as I scrolled through Grandpa's contacts. JC Emergency. I dialed. The phone rang twice. "Jasmine?" Dr. John's voice was sharp, alert, like he'd been waiting. "Yes, Grandpa told me to call. He said, 'Code Lazarus,'" Grandpa called out. A pause, then, "I've been waiting for this call for 2 years. Don't move. I'll be there in 20 minutes. "Dr. John, what's—" "Listen carefully." His voice was all business now. "Do not engage with your father. Do not enter the property. Do not speak to anyone who comes to the house. Edmund, are you there?" I'm here, John. Good. I'm bringing the envelope. The call ended. I looked at Grandpa. What envelope? He didn't answer. Just sat there on the steps, hands folded in his lap. Waiting. 18 minutes later, a silver Mercedes E-Class pulled up. Dr. John Castellano stepped out. 60 years old, gray hair, $1,000 suit. He was carrying a leather briefcase. And when he looked at me and Grandpa sitting on those porch steps, locked out of our own home, his face went hard. "Let's get to work," he said. "Before I tell you what was in that envelope, you need to understand how we got here. You need to understand what my father took from us, and why Grandpa had been ready for this moment for 2 years. It started with my mother. Catherine Rougemont Callahan died on January 15, 2020. Ovarian cancer. She was 52 years old. I was at Providence Portland Medical Center the night she died. Room 512. It was 3:17 in the morning when the nurse came in to confirm what we already knew. Grandpa held her hand until the very end. My father wasn't there. He'd gone home 4 hours earlier, said he needed to clear his head, said he'd be back in the morning. He wasn't. Grandpa and I made the funeral arrangements ourselves. That was the first crack. 3 years later, March 15, 2023, Grandpa had a stroke. Minor ischemic stroke, left hemisphere. He was in his garden when it happened. 74 years old, planting tomatoes. And suddenly, his left hand wouldn't close around the trowel. I was working a shift at Providence General when they called me. By the time I got to the ER, my father was already there. Jeremy Callahan, my mother's husband. Technically my stepfather, though I'd never called him that. He'd driven 3 hours from Seattle. "How did you know?" I asked him. "The hospital called me," he said. "I'm next of kin." He wasn't. I was. But I didn't argue. The ER doctor told us Grandpa would be fine. The clot had dissolved with TPA within 90 minutes. He'd need physical therapy. His left hand would shake for a while. But the prognosis was good. Jeremy nodded, took notes, asked questions about cognitive function and legal capacity. At the time, I thought he was being thorough. Now I know better. "Dad," Jeremy said, sitting at Grandpa's, "I'm going to the hospital." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Dad said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." "Okay," Jeremy said. "I'll be there in a few minutes." Okay, Dad said. Dad, Jeremy said, sitting at Grandpa's bedside. We need to talk about what happens if this happens again. What if next time you can't make decisions? I trust Jasmine, Grandpa said. I'm sure you do, but she's just a nurse. She doesn't understand legal matters. I'm your son-in-law. I handled Catherine's affairs. Let me handle yours. Nathan slid a document across the hospital tray table. Power of attorney. Just for 12 months, Jeremy said. Unless you renew it. Just in case. Grandpa signed it. His hand shook. The signature was messy, slanting left. I watched it happen and said nothing. What could I say? He was my father. Grandpa was vulnerable. Nathan witnessed the signature. March 22nd, 2023. I didn't know it then, but that POA had an expiration clause buried in the fine print. Valid for 12 months unless renewed in writing. Jeremy knew. He was counting on Grandpa not to remember. But Grandpa did recover. By June, his neurologist, Dr. Brennan, no relation to the judge you'll hear about later, had documented full cognitive capacity. Montreal Cognitive Assessment, 28 out of 30. Normal for his age. The tremor in his left hand faded from a 4 out of 10 to barely a 1. He was back to gardening by July, back to driving by August, and in September, I made a decision. I quit my job at Providence General, moved into Grandpa's second bedroom, not because he needed me, but because he was alone. And I was alone. And after my mother died, we were all each other had. I paid $800 a month in rent. Below market, Grandpa insisted. Jeremy called me 3 days after I moved in. This is inappropriate, Jasmine. You're a 30-year-old woman living off an old man. I'm helping my grandfather recover. You're positioning yourself for the inheritance. We see what you're doing. His wife Linda, his second wife, married 2 years after my mother died, was on the line too. You're a gold digger, she said. I hung up. November 8th, 2023. Grandpa disappeared for 3 hours. No note, no text, just gone. I called his cell 6 times. No answer. When he came home, he was carrying a manila envelope, sealed. Where were you? I asked. I was worried. Just handling some paperwork, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about. Are you sure you're okay? I'm better than I've been in years. He went to his bedroom, opened the safe. The combination was my mother's birthday, 011568, and he put the envelope inside. I didn't ask what was in it. I should have. For the next 2 years, life was quiet. I got a part-time job back at Providence, 3 shifts a week, enough to pay rent and save a little. Grandpa and I fell into a rhythm. Sunday mornings, we'd walk to the French bakery on 23rd, croissants and coffee. He'd tell me stories about my mother when she was young. Tuesdays, we'd watch Jeopardy! He never missed a question in the history category. Fridays, I'd cook dinner, usually pasta. He loved my carbonara. Jeremy called once a month, always the same questions. When are you going to update your will, Dad? Have you thought about long-term care insurance? What's your estate worth these days? Grandpa would answer in monosyllables, then hang up. And every time after he hung up, he'd look at me with that same small smile, like he knew something I didn't. In May of 2025, Grandpa told me he wanted to go to France. I'm 76, he said. Your mother and I always talked about visiting the village where the Rougemonts came from. We never did. I want to go before I can't. Then let's go, I said. We planned it for September, 3 weeks. Paris, Bordeaux, the countryside. We booked the flights in June. Grandpa told Jeremy we'd be gone. 3 weeks, Jeremy said. Dad, that's a long time. What if something happens? Then it happens, Grandpa said. I'm going. We left on September 29th. The trip was everything he'd hoped for. We found the church in the village of Rougemont where his grandparents had been baptized. We stood in the cemetery and found their names carved in stone. We ate cheese in Bordeaux and drank wine older than I was. Grandpa cried twice, once at the church, once when we stood on the platform at Gare de Lyon, about to take the train back to Paris for our flight home. Your mother should have been here, he said. She is, I told him. We landed in Portland on October 20th, 2025, 2 p.m., and when the Uber pulled up to 1847 NW Northrop Street, my key didn't fit. Dr. John didn't waste time. We sat in his Mercedes, me in the passenger seat, Grandpa in the back, and he opened his briefcase. Inside was a red envelope, sealed with wax. The seal was embossed with 2 letters, E.R., Edmond Rougemont. 2 years ago, Dr. John said, looking at me, your grandfather came to my office. He told me, if anyone tries to sell this house without your knowledge, Jasmine, I should give you this. He broke the seal. Inside were 3 things: a 47-page trust document, a 12-page letter of instruction, and a USB drive. He knew? I whispered. 2 years ago? Grandpa's voice came from the back seat. I didn't know. I suspected. After the POA incident, I realized your father saw me as an asset, not a father. Dr. John handed me the trust document. The Rougemont Family Revocable Living Trust, he said. Created November 8, 2023. Let me show you page 8. I flipped to it. All real property including but not limited to 1847 NW Northrop Street, Portland, Oregon, is hereby transferred to the trust effective November 10th, 2023. My hands started shaking. The house was transferred to the trust? I said. 2 years ago? Correct, Dr. John said, which means when Jeremy sold it last week, he sold property he didn't own, because Edmond didn't own it anymore. The trust did. But the sale went through. How? Dr. John's smile was thin. Because he forged Edmund's signature on a POA renewal document. The title company didn't verify. The buyer didn't ask questions. And now they've all committed fraud. He pulled out another document. The original power of attorney, dated March 22, 2023, and a second POA, dated March 20th, 2024. Look at the signatures, Dr. John said, laying them side by side. The first signature was shaky, left slanting, Edmund's hand still trembling from the stroke. The second signature was smooth, centered, steady. Your tremor didn't fully resolve until June of 2023, Dr. John said to Grandpa. Correct? Correct. So a signature in March of 2024, 2 days before the original POA expired, shouldn't be this clean. He slid a third document across. Forensic Handwriting Analysis. Dated October 15th, 2025, 4 days before we came home from France. I had this commissioned, Dr. John said. The signature on the renewal is a forgery. An expert will testify to that in court. I looked at Grandpa. You knew, I said. You knew he'd try something. I knew he'd try something eventually, Grandpa said quietly. I just didn't know when. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed you to be innocent. I needed your reaction to be real. If you'd known about the trust, you might have let something slip. Jeremy had to believe he'd won, Doctor. John picked up the USB drive. There's more, he said. He plugged the drive into his laptop. 18 audio files appeared. Oregon is a 2-party consent state, Dr. John said, which means you can't record someone without their permission. But at the start of each of these calls, Edmund asked Jeremy if it was okay to record, and Jeremy said yes. He clicked on the first file. May 14th, 2024, Grandpa's voice. Jeremy, I'm recording this for my records. Is that okay? Jeremy's voice distracted. Whatever, Dad. Then, Jeremy, when are you going to update your will? You're not getting any younger. Edmund. I've already taken care of everything, Jeremy. Jeremy. With that nurse? You're leaving everything to Jasmine? Edmund. I said I've taken care of it. That's all you need to know. A long pause. Then Jeremy's voice, low and cold. Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you when she drains your accounts. The file ended. Dr. John clicked on another. August 3rd, 2025. Jeremy's voice, talking to someone else in the background. Linda. Once the old man's gone, we'll have at least 2 million. The house alone is worth 1.2. Linda's voice. What about Jasmine? Jeremy. She's not blood. She gets nothing. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. How many of these are there? I whispered. 18, Dr. John said. 6 hours and 23 minutes total. All time-stamped. All admissible. He closed the laptop. Here's what we're going to do, he said. First, I file a motion to void the sale. Fraud in the inducement. Second, we send the forensic report to the district attorney. Third, he looked at Grandpa. We invoke Article 7. What's Article 7? I asked. Grandpa's voice was quiet. The betrayal clause. Dr. John turned to page 31 of the trust. Article 7. Automatic disqualification for malfeasance. If any beneficiary attempts to defraud the trust or its grantor, they are removed from succession and barred from any inheritance. Jeremy is a beneficiary? I asked. He was, Grandpa said. 50%. You were the other 50%. And now? Now, if the clause is activated, he gets nothing. You get 85%. And there's one more person who gets 15. I stared at him. Who? Your sister. I didn't have a sister, or so I thought. Sophie, Grandpa said. Jeremy's younger daughter from his first marriage. Your half-sister. She's 25 now. I added her to the trust in November of 2023. Why? Because she's not Jeremy. She's young and scared of him, but she's not him. I thought, hoped, that one day she'd see through him. And when she did, I wanted her to know she had a place to land. Does she know about the sale? I asked. I don't know, Grandpa said, but we're about to find out. Dr. John started the engine. Where are we going? I asked. Cascade Title and Escrow, he said, to get the paper trail. And then we're going to meet the person who bought your house. Who is it? Beverly Winters, Dr. John said. And trust me, she's not going to like what we have to tell her. Cascade Title and Escrow was in a glass building downtown, 10th floor. The escrow officer, a woman named Tanya, maybe 35, went pale when Dr. John introduced himself. I need the file for 1847 Northwest Northrop Street, he said. Sale closed October 5th. We followed standard procedure, Tanya said. The POA looked legitimate. Did you verify the grantor's signature against prior documents? The seller's attorney provided an affidavit. Nathan Aldridge. Yes. Did you independently verify? Silence. Dr. John leaned forward. Miss Santos, I'm not here to destroy your career, but I need that file. Now. She printed it. Escrow, file number 2025-8834. Inside, a photocopy of the POA, not the original. Nathan's affidavit, dated October 1st, and notes in the margin. Rush close requested. 14 days from offer to close. Unusually fast for $1 million property. Who requested the rush? Dr. John asked. The seller, Tanya whispered. Mr. Callahan. And you didn't think that was a red flag? He said the buyer wanted to move quickly. It happens. Dr. John closed the file. Not anymore, he said. We met Beverly Winters at Stumptown Coffee. Downtown, table by the window. She was 58, wearing a Talbot's blazer and reading glasses on a chain. When Dr. John slid the trust document across the table, she didn't speak. She read, for 8 minutes straight. Then she looked up. I bought that house in good faith, she said. I've been developing in Portland for 30 years. I don't do shady deals. We're not accusing you, Ms. Winters, Dr. John said. We're informing you that the sale was fraudulent. The property was in a trust. The seller had no authority. Beverly leaned back. Show me the rest. Dr. John slid over the forensic report. She read that too. Then she set it down and looked at me. You're the granddaughter, she said. Yes. And you didn't know about the sale. I was in France. We came home and the locks were changed. Beverly's jaw tightened. My father lost his farm to a con man in 1987, she said. Forged deed. Fake signatures. The whole playbook. It destroyed him. He died thinking he'd failed us. She pushed the documents back across the table. I don't care how good the deal is, she said. I won't be part of fraud. If this house was stolen from you, I'm out. You'd walk away from $1 million property? I asked. I'd walk away from 10 million, Beverly said. My name means something in this city. I'm not letting some greedy son-in-law ruin it. She pulled out her phone. What are you doing? Dr. John asked. Calling my attorney, Beverly said. I'm rescinding the purchase, and then I'm going to make sure every developer in Portland knows Jeremy Callahan is toxic. Dr. John made one more call that day, to Nathan Aldridge. Nathan picked up on the second ring. John, he said, what can I do for you? You can explain why you notarized an affidavit for a forged power of attorney. Silence. I didn't know it was forged. You didn't verify it. Jeremy's been my client for 15 years. You trusted the wrong person. Now you're named in a fraud case. What are you going to do about it? Nathan's voice went quiet. What do you want, John? I want you to tell the truth. In a deposition, under oath, because if you don't, the Oregon State Bar is going to have questions about your license. Another pause. I'll talk to my malpractice carrier, Nathan said. You do that. Dr. John hung up. He looked at me and Grandpa. Nathan will cooperate, he said. He's not going to risk his career for Jeremy. What happens now? I asked. Now, Dr. John said, we go to war. The meeting was set for November 1st. Nathan's office, conference room on the 10th floor, view of the Willamette River. 2 p.m. Present. Edmund, Jasmine, Dr. John, and Jeremy, Linda, and Nathan. Jeremy walked in looking confident. He was wearing a Rolex, a gift from Linda. Anniversary present, 2024. Linda was clutching a Prada bag. New. $3,200. I know because I'd looked it up online after she posted it on Instagram 3 weeks ago, while we were in France. Jeremy sat down across from us. What's this about, Nathan? He said. The sale closed 2 weeks ago. That's the problem, Nathan said. The sale shouldn't have closed. Please, sit down. Jeremy looked at me, then at Grandpa, then at Dr. John. What is this? He said. An ambush? Grandpa's voice was calm. No, son. It's a reckoning. House to a Revocable Living Trust. On House to a Revocable Living Trust on November 10th, 2023. You sold property you didn't own, Jeremy. Jeremy's face went red. That's ridiculous. I had power of attorney. You had an expired POA, Dr. John said. And this? He slid the forensic report forward. This proves you forged the renewal. I didn't forge anything. Dr. John opened his laptop. Let's let you speak for yourself. He pressed play. Jeremy's voice filled the room. Once the old man's gone, we'll have at least 2 million. Linda's voice. What about Jasmine? Jeremy. She's not blood. She gets nothing. Linda stood up. I need to use the restroom, she said, but she didn't move. She just stood there, staring at Jeremy. Sit down, Jeremy said. You told me he'd agreed, Linda whispered. You said it was his idea. I said sit down. She didn't. Jeremy turned to Grandpa. This is her doing, he shouted, pointing at me. She poisoned you against me, Dad. Grandpa didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. No one poisoned me, Jeremy. I watched you. For 2 years, I watched you circle like a vulture. I was trying to protect you. From what? Grandpa leaned forward. From my own granddaughter, who gave up her career to care for me? Or from yourself, from the $340,000 in debt you're drowning in? Jeremy went white. How do you... Dr. John slid another document across the table. Jeremy's credit report. As trustee, I have authority to investigate financial threats to the trust, Dr. John said. You owe $215,000 in credit cards, $85,000 on a personal loan, $40,000 on that Mercedes outside, and your household spending is $180,000 a year on an income of $120,000. Linda sat down, hard. Jeremy, she whispered. You told me we were fine. Shut up, Linda. Dr. John closed the laptop. Here's your choice, Jeremy. Option 1. You return the $950,000. You sign an affidavit admitting the POA was invalid. You withdraw any claim to Edmund's estate, and we don't file criminal charges. I spent that money. Then option 2. I file fraud charges tomorrow. The DA already has the forensic report. You'll face 2 to 5 years, and you'll still lose the inheritance. Nathan cleared his throat. Jeremy, he said quietly, take option 1. Shut up, Nathan. Jeremy, Linda said, please, think about the kids. I hadn't known there were kids. 2 of them, apparently. Ethan and Lily, 11 and 8. We'll figure it out, Jeremy said. How? Linda's voice cracked. We spent $600,000 already. Down payment on the Bellevue house, paid off the cards, bought the cars. How are we going to give back $950 when we only have $300 left? The room went silent. Even Jeremy had nothing to say to that. Dr. John stood up. You have 72 hours to decide, he said. After that, I file. He picked up his briefcase. Grandpa stood. So did I. We walked to the door. Behind us, I heard Linda crying, and Jeremy, silent. We were in the hallway when Linda came out, alone. Mr. Rougemont, she said. I told him not to do it, but we're drowning. The business failed. The credit cards. I didn't know he'd forged your signature. Grandpa looked at her. But you knew he was selling my house without my consent. I thought, he said you'd agreed, that it was too much for you to handle. Her mascara was running. Dior, $38. I know because I used to wear it before I quit my job. I'm sorry, Linda whispered. I'm so sorry. I looked at her. Sorry doesn't give us our home back. She nodded and walked back into the conference room. Dr. John filed the motion to void the sale on November 2nd. 9:47 a.m. Emergency motion for declaratory relief, 47 pages, 200 pages of exhibits. The filing fee was $350. We served Jeremy on November 3rd. He had until November 10th to respond. Jeremy hired a new attorney, Margaret Voss, partner at Keller and Voss. She had a reputation for scorched earth litigation. Her response came in on November 9th, one day before the deadline. She argued that Edmund lacked legal capacity to create the trust, that I had manipulated him, that the trust should be invalidated, and she demanded a psychiatric evaluation. The hearing was set for November 15th, Multnomah County Circuit Court, Courtroom 5B. The Honorable Patricia Brennan presiding, no relation to Dr. Brennan, the neurologist. But just as sharp. Judge Brennan was 55, former prosecutor. She didn't suffer fools. The courtroom was packed, mostly lawyers, curious about the case. In the gallery, I saw Beverly Winters. She'd filed a joinder, a legal document supporting our side. Grandpa wore his Navy Brooks Brothers suit, the same one he'd worn to my mother's funeral. I wore my nurse scrubs. I'd come straight from a shift. Dr. John had suggested it. Optics, he'd said. You're a working nurse who gave up her career to care for her grandfather. Lean into that. The hearing started at 10 a.m. Dr. John presented first. He laid out the timeline. The trust, created November 8, 2023. The POA, expired March 22, 2024. The forged renewal, dated March 20, 2024. The sale, closed October 5, 2025. Your Honor, Dr. John said, This isn't a case about capacity. It's a case about greed. The defendant used an expired and forged document to sell property he didn't own, and now he's attempting to invalidate a legally sound trust to cover his tracks. Margaret Voss stood. Your Honor, my client acted in good faith. He believed his father-in-law lacked capacity to manage his affairs. The trust was created during a period when Mr. Rougemont was recovering from a stroke and under the influence of his granddaughter. Judge Brennan looked at her. Counselor, do you have evidence of undue influence? We're requesting an independent psychiatric evaluation. That's not what I asked. Do you have evidence now? Margaret hesitated. Not at this time, Your Honor. Then I'm granting the evaluation, but I'm also granting the plaintiff's motion for a preliminary injunction. The sale is frozen until we have medical testimony. She banged the gavel. Dr. Sarah Kowalski will conduct the evaluation. She's a geriatric psychiatrist, board certified, no conflicts. Report due in 5 days. November 17th. Grandpa sat in Dr. Kowalski's office for 3 hours. She was thorough. Montreal Cognitive Assessment, mini mental state exam, clock drawing test, interviews about his daily life, his decision-making, his relationship with me. I wasn't allowed in the room. I waited in the lobby, reading the same magazine 3 times. When Grandpa came out, he looked tired. How'd it go? I asked. She's good, he said. Fair. Do you think we'll know soon enough? Dr. Kowalski's report came in on November 18th, 23 pages. Dr. John forwarded it to me that night. I read it twice. Here's what mattered. Patient demonstrates full testamentary capacity, Montreal Cognitive Assessment score, 29 out of 30. Mini mental state exam, 30 out of 30. Clock drawing test, perfect. Executive function, intact. Memory, age appropriate. Patient shows no signs of dementia, delirium, or cognitive impairment. Patient's account of creating the trust is detailed, consistent, and rational. No evidence of undue influence. In my professional opinion, Edmond Rougemont had full legal capacity in November 2023 and continues to have full capacity today. I called Grandpa. She said, "You're competent." I could have told you that, he said. I laughed. For the first time in weeks, I laughed. The second hearing was November 22nd. Same courtroom, same judge. Dr. Kowalski testified. She was unshakable. Margaret Voss tried. Dr. Kowalski, isn't it true that stroke patients often show delayed cognitive decline? In some cases, yes. Not in this case. How can you be certain? Because I've reviewed all of Mr. Rougemont's medical records since the stroke. His neurologist documented complete recovery by June of 2023. His cognitive scores have been stable or improving since then. There is no evidence of decline. But his age? His age is irrelevant. Capacity is not determined by age, it's determined by function. And Mr. Rougemont functions at a level above average for his age group. Margaret sat down. Judge Brennan looked at Dr. John. Anything else, Counselor? No, Your Honor. The evidence speaks for itself. The judge nodded. I've heard enough. The trust is valid. The power of attorney was expired and the renewal was forged. The sale is void. Ms. Winters, you'll be refunded your purchase price. Mr. Callahan, you have 10 days to return those funds or face contempt. She banged the gavel. 11:23 a.m. I watched my father's face turn white. Linda was crying. Grandpa squeezed my hand, his left hand, no tremor. But Judge Brennan wasn't done. One more thing, she said. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office. Mr. Callahan, you may want to retain criminal counsel. Margaret stood. Your Honor, that's highly unusual. So is forging documents to steal from your elderly father-in-law. We're adjourned. 3 days later, I got a call from Dr. John. The DA's opening a case, he said. Assistant DA Ryan Fletcher. He wants Edmond to come in for an interview. When? Tomorrow. What are they charging Jeremy with? Forgery in the first degree, theft in the first degree, possibly criminal mistreatment. What's the sentence? 2 to 10 years. I didn't feel happy. I felt tired. Will Grandpa have to testify? Probably. At trial, if it goes that far. Do you think it will? I think Jeremy's going to take a plea, Dr. John said. He doesn't have a choice. But before Jeremy could take a plea, something else happened. Something I didn't see coming. On November 25th, 3 days after the second hearing, my doorbell rang. I was staying at a temporary apartment in the Alphabet District. 2 bedrooms, 2,400 a month. Grandpa and I had moved in after the lockout. It was 7:30 p.m. I opened the door, and there stood a woman I hadn't seen in 5 years. Sophie Callahan, my half-sister. She was 25 now, tall, blonde, wearing a Banana Republic blouse and work badge from an architecture firm. Jasmine, she said. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what Dad did. You knew he sold Grandpa's house. He told me Grandpa agreed. He said it was for assisted living, that Grandpa couldn't handle the stairs anymore. He said, her voice broke, he promised to pay off my student loans. $95,000. I believed him. I looked at her. This was the girl who'd called me a gold digger, who'd sided with Jeremy at every turn, who'd stopped speaking to me after I moved in with Grandpa. And now she was here, crying on my doorstep. Why are you here, Sophie? Because I'm sorry, and because I need you to know I didn't want this. Behind me, I heard Grandpa's voice. Let her in, Jasmine. He'd made a payment. 95,000. He said it was from the house sale. I logged in to check. She pulled out her phone, showed me the screen. Navient. Balance. $95,382.19. No payment. He lied, she whispered. Grandpa sat down next to her. Sophie, he said quietly. Come here. She looked at him, and then she collapsed into his arms. Her whole body shook. I'm so sorry, Grandpa. I'm so sorry. He held her. His left hand, steady, no tremor, stroked her hair. I know, sweetheart. I know. When she'd stopped crying, Grandpa pulled out the trust document. I need to show you something, he said. He turned to page 18. Beneficiaries. Original distribution. Jeremy Callahan, 50%. Jasmine Rougemont, 50%. But there was an amendment, dated November 20th, 2023. Sophie Catherine Callahan, granddaughter, 15% residual beneficiary. Sophie stared at it. What? I added you to the trust 2 years ago, Grandpa said. 15%. It's yours. No strings attached. But I didn't do anything. I didn't help you like Jasmine did. You were 23. You were scared of your father. I understood. But I also knew, hoped, that one day you'd see through him. He squeezed her hand. And here you are. Sophie looked at me. You knew? No, I said. I just found out. 15% of what? Dr. John's voice came from the doorway. He'd let himself in. We'd given him a key. 15% of $2.847 million, he said, which comes to approximately $427,000. Sophie's mouth fell open. I can't. You can, Grandpa said. And you will. It's already done. The next day, Beverly Winters made her move. She filed a formal rescission of the purchase and an email to Cascade Title that got forwarded to every real estate attorney in Portland. I saw a copy. It read, I am formally rescinding my purchase of 1847 Northwest Northrop Street effective immediately. Per court order dated November 22, 2025, the sale was fraudulent. I demand full refund of $950,000 within 10 business days. Additionally, I am filing a complaint with the Oregon Real Estate Agency regarding your failure to verify grantor authority. Sincerely, Beverly Winters. CC'd, Dr. John Castellano, Judge Brennan's clerk, Oregon Real Estate Agency. The response was immediate. Tanya, the escrow officer, was suspended pending investigation. First American Title Insurance opened a claim file, and Cascade Title panicked. Dr. John filed another motion, asset seizure. To secure the judgment against Jeremy, the court granted it. On November 26th, the sheriff executed a writ of attachment. Jeremy's house in Bellevue, purchased with a $400,000 down payment from Grandpa's money. His Mercedes GLE, $62,000. Linda's BMW X5, $23,000. Their bank accounts, $65,380. Total, approximately $550,000. Still short, $400,000. Jeremy called Linda's parents. They were wealthy. Tech money from the 90s. They'd bailed Jeremy out before. This time they said no. December 3rd, 2025. I was at work, back to full-time nursing now, when Dr. John called. "Turn on the news," he said. I pulled out my phone. Cat2 News. Seattle man arrested in Portland elder fraud case. There was video. Jeremy being led out of his office in handcuffs. 2 p.m. Maximum humiliation. His colleagues watching. The charges: forgery in the first degree, theft in the first degree, criminal mistreatment in the first degree. Bail, $100,000, posted by Linda's father, who then called Linda and told her she was on her own. Jeremy's arraignment was December 5th. He pleaded not guilty. Trial was set for March of 2026, but he never made it to trial. The media picked up the story. The Oregonian ran it front page, below the fold. Seattle man pleads guilty in elder fraud case. The article included everything: the forged POA, the trust, the recordings. There was a photo of Jeremy leaving the courthouse, head down, hand covering his face. The reporter was Mike Schmidt, veteran crime beat journalist. He'd interviewed Beverly Winters. She'd given him a quote: "Elder abuse is an epidemic. I'm proud to stand with Mr. Rougemont against it." The online comments section exploded. 847 comments in 12 hours, most of them outraged. And then it hit Reddit, r/Portland. Portland grandpa outsmarts greedy son-in-law. 12,380 upvotes, 1,200 comments. Twitter, now X, started trending the hashtag #JusticeForEdmund. Jeremy's employer saw the article. Cascade Commercial Realty. On December 16th, he received a termination letter. "Mr. Callahan, effective immediately, your employment with Cascade Commercial Realty is terminated. Your felony conviction precludes licensure under WAC 308-124C-800. Final paycheck will be mailed." His real estate license was revoked. Washington Department of Licensing, December 18th. Jeremy's income, $0. Linda's income, $45,000 a year as an administrative assistant. Their mortgage, $3,200 a month. Court-ordered restitution, $5,000 a month. The math didn't work. On March 3rd, 2026, Jeremy filed for bankruptcy. Chapter 13. But before that, something else happened. Something that broke what was left of Jeremy's life. On March 5th, Linda filed for divorce. She took Ethan and Lily, moved to her parents' house in Issaquah. Her text to Jeremy, which he showed to his attorney who mentioned it to Dr. John, who told me, read, "I can't do this anymore. The kids are asking why Daddy's on the news. My parents won't look at me. I'm filing tomorrow. I'm sorry. But you did this, not me." Jeremy moved to a studio apartment in Renton, $950 a month. He got a job as a janitor at a community college. $15 an hour. It was all he could get with a felony record. On March 20th, a letter arrived at our temporary apartment. Handwritten, 2 pages, lined notebook paper, cheap, from Jeremy. Grandpa opened it, read it, and then he tore it in half, twice, and dropped it in the trash. "What did it say?" I asked. "He said he's sorry, that he was desperate, that he wants to talk." "What did you say?" "Nothing. Tell Dr. John to tell him no, he had 2 years to talk, he chose theft. But Ryan Fletcher, the assistant DA, offered Jeremy a deal. In February, before the trial date, plead guilty to all charges. In exchange, 18 months in prison, suspended, 5 years probation, 950,000 in restitution, 50,000 in fines, 500 hours of community service at an elderly care facility, mandatory counseling. Margaret Voss advised him to take it. If we go to trial, you're looking at 5 years minimum, she said. The forensic evidence is airtight. The recordings are damning. Take the deal. Jeremy took the deal. The plea hearing was February 14th, 2026, Valentine's Day. Judge Brennan presided. Jeremy's voice when he entered the plea was barely a whisper. Guilty, Your Honor. The media storm was worse the second time, because this time it was final. Jeremy Callahan, convicted felon. The Oregonian ran an editorial. Elder abuse in Oregon, a growing crisis. It cited statistics. 1 in 10 adults over 60 experience abuse. Financial exploitation is the most common form. Only 1 in 24 cases are reported. The editorial ended with a quote from Beverly Winters. If you have aging parents, protect them, create trusts, document everything, don't wait until someone locks them out of their own home. We moved back into 1847 Northwest Northrop Street in May of 2026. The house had been held in escrow during the legal proceedings. When the sale was voided, it reverted to the trust. We changed the locks. Medeco high security. No one was getting in without a key this time. Sophie came over every Sunday, 10 a.m. She'd bring croissants from the French bakery on 23rd, the same one Grandpa and I used to go to. She'd been promoted at her architecture firm. Associate architect. She was paying down her student loans. Grandpa had offered to pay them off. She'd said no. I need to do this myself, she'd said. But he'd put money aside for her anyway. In the trust. $427,000. Waiting for when she was ready. Life settled into a new rhythm. I went back to work part-time, 3 shifts a week at Providence. I'd also joined the hospital's elder abuse response team, volunteer work. In April of 2027, I was invited to speak at the Oregon State Bar Elder Law Section. Topic: Red Flags and Power of Attorney Abuse. I told our story. 200 attorneys in the room. When I finished, they gave me a standing ovation. On March 20th, 2027, exactly 1 year after Jeremy sent his first apology letter, the doorbell rang. It was a Sunday. Sophie was in the kitchen making coffee. Grandpa was in the living room reading the paper. I opened the door. Jeremy stood there. He looked different. Thinner. 30 pounds lighter, maybe. Old jeans, frayed at the hem. Goodwill jacket. Shoes worn at the toes. No watch. He'd sold the Rolex for restitution. His hands were shaking. Not from anger, from nerves. Jasmine, he said. Is Dad home? I almost slammed the door, but Grandpa's voice came from behind me. Let him in. Jeremy sat on the couch, the same couch where Sophie had collapsed in tears a year and a half ago. He didn't look at me, or Sophie, just at Grandpa. Dad, he said, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I've been sober for a year. I've completed 350 hours of community service at Riverside Elder Care. I'm working as a janitor. I'm paying you back, $5,000 a month, like the court said. Why are you here, Jeremy? Grandpa asked. Jeremy's voice cracked. Because I want to try, to be something other than the man who betrayed you. The room was silent. Sophie set down her coffee mug. I held my breath. Grandpa looked at Jeremy for a long time. Then he spoke. You'll never inherit from me, Jeremy. That ship sailed. The trust goes to Jasmine and Sophie. But if you do the work, real work, for 5 years, we can try to be family again. Not what we were. Something new. Jeremy's face crumpled. I understand. Do you? Grandpa leaned forward. Because if you relapse, if you miss one payment, if you lie to me once, I'm done. Forever. I understand, Dad. Thank you. Grandpa pulled out a piece of paper. He'd written out the terms, in his handwriting. With the fountain pen my mother had given him 30 years ago. 5 years of probation, clean, full restitution, family therapy with Jasmine and Sophie, no inheritance, ever. Jeremy read it and signed it. No notary, just symbolic. The first therapy session was April 3rd. Dr. Helen Marks, family systems specialist. $180 a session. Grandpa paid. I didn't want to go. But Grandpa asked me to. Not for him, he said. For us, so we can close this chapter. So I went. Sophie and I talked after Jeremy left that first day. Do you think he'll make it? She asked. 5 years is a long time. I don't know, I said. But Grandpa's giving him a chance. That's more than I would have done. Sophie nodded. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, she said. When Dad sold the house, I should have questioned it. You were 25 and scared, I get it now. I paused. But we're here now. That's what matters. We hugged. A real hug. The first in 3 years. Grandpa is 78 now. His health is good. Blood pressure, 128/78. No new strokes. His cognition is sharp as ever. We're planning a trip to Bordeaux this summer, just the two of us. And maybe Sophie, if she can get the time off. The trust is ironclad. Jasmine Rougemont, 85%. Sophie Catherine Callahan, 15%. Jeremy Thomas. Callahan, 0. Dr. John remains trustee. When Grandpa passes, and I hope that's many years from now, I'll become primary trustee. Sophie will be backup. Grandpa updated his will in March of 2027. There's a new provision. $500,000 to the Providence Hospital Elder Abuse Prevention Fund, in Catherine's name. The fund was established in April. It provides legal aid and medical advocacy for elderly patients at risk of financial exploitation. Sometimes, late at night, Grandpa and I sit on the porch steps, the same steps where he sat that October afternoon, locked out of his own home. The third plank still has the worn spot. He touches the photo of my mother every day, silver frame on the mantel. She's 48 in the picture. Thanksgiving, 2016. Laughing. Your mother would be proud of you, he told me last week. Not because you won, because you did the right thing, even when it was hard. I learned from you, Grandpa. No, he said. You learned from Catherine. She always had a spine of steel wrapped in kindness, just like you. Looking back, I realized Grandpa wasn't just protecting himself when he created that trust. He was protecting me, protecting the idea that family should mean safety, not exploitation. And he was teaching me that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is plan for betrayal. Not because you're cynical, but because you're wise. 1 in 10 seniors will face financial abuse. Most never report it. If you have aging parents or grandparents, please help them create trusts. Update powers of attorney with expiration dates. Get medical capacity assessments documented. Don't wait until someone locks them out of their own home. Edmund Rougemont is 78 years old. He doesn't know how much time he has left, but he knows this. The trust he created wasn't just about money. It was about making sure the people he loves are taken care of, and the people who don't love him can't hurt them. That's legacy, not wealth, protection. If this story moved you, if you've ever worried about a parent or grandparent being taken advantage of, share this with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment telling me, have you ever had to stand up to family to protect someone you love? This is Jasmine Rougemont, reminding you that justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a quiet old man on the porch steps, making one phone call that changes everything. Thanks for listening.
From my search. Doing 100 in the rain. Whoa. This is good. I like how they've changed the HUD and put the speedometer and everything on the screen like that. Because sometimes I can't see the speedometer. Like, look at this particular truck, you know, and you can zoom in, but I'm using my steering wheel, right? And to zoom in, you know, like, I have to grab the mouse. And that's great. It really is, you know. Honestly, but I've got to figure something out while I'm, you know, using my steering wheel. To make that a lot easier.